I've been thinking a lot, as I have done for a really long time, about the original core wound of humanity, of the human condition, the wound of separation, ultimately, the sense, the feeling that's carried around from the agitated self, the separate self, that is the feeling, or the unconscious feeling, that we are separate from the divine, separate from existence, separate from life, separate from each other, separate within ourselves. And this separation is the cause of our great suffering. And so I've been looking into that quite a lot, contemplating on it. When I say looking into it, I do mean really contemplating it on ever deeper levels. And I came to, as I've come to before, really deeply considering the Adam and Eve wound. And so I've written something that I think I'm going to read it out as today's video. I'm going to read it out. It's called Healing the Adam and Eve Wound, A Path to Wholeness. It's quite long, so sit back. The story of Adam and Eve, often seen as an ancient myth, carries profound psychological and spiritual significance. It is a story of separation from innocence, from each other, from the divine, and ultimately from our true selves. At its core, the Adam and Eve wound is the deep-seated feeling of being fundamentally separate, separate from love, separate from others, and separate from the essence of who we truly are. Healing this wound is not about fixing something broken, but about remembering that we are never separate to begin with. The true nature of this healing is the return to wholeness and embracing of our essential unity with all that is. The origins of the Adam and Eve wound. The Adam and Eve story, in its simplest form, reflects the human experience of separation and the search for connection. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, they believed they had lost their original state of grace. They were cast out of the Garden of Eden, expelled from the divine presence, and ever since, humans have carried the belief that they are inherently flawed or disconnected from the divine. This myth echoes the primordial wound, the feeling of separation that many of us carry. It is a wound of the soul, manifesting in our deepest fears of not being enough or not being worthy of love. This wound is not just a psychological condition, but a spiritual affliction, one that speaks to the heart of the human condition, the experience of disconnection. We often feel disconnected from others, from life itself, and from the love that is our true nature. The masculine and feminine energies, the core of the wound. The Adam and Eve wound is deeply tied to the split between the masculine and feminine energies. In the story, Eve's act of disobedience, eating the forbidden fruit, has been interpreted for millennia as the cause of the fall from grace. However, this interpretation does not honour the deeper truth of the myth. The deeper message is that the wound lies in the separation of the masculine and feminine energies, the masculine representing presence, clarity and awareness, and the feminine energy representing love, surrender and connection. When these energies are out of balance, a deep sense of disconnection arises within us. The masculine, when separated from the feminine, can become rigid, controlling and domineering, while the feminine, when disconnected from the masculine, can become fragmented, passive and lost. In this state of imbalance, we experience the very wounds that plague humanity, a sense of inadequacy, a desire for external validation, and the inability to fully accept and love ourselves. In relationships, this imbalance often shows up as a struggle between love and fear. We may long for intimacy and connection, but simultaneously fear vulnerability. We seek love, but are trapped by the illusions of control and pride. This dynamic is perpetuated by the illusion that we are separate from each other and separate from love itself. Healing the wound, the union of love and presence. Healing the Adam and Eve wound begins with recognizing that the sense of separation is an illusion. The way forward is through the union of love and presence. When we bring together the masculine energy of presence, awareness, clarity, stillness, and the feminine energy of love, compassion, flow, surrender, we begin to heal the wounds of disconnection and separation. These energies are not bound by gender, but represent fundamental forces of the human experience. To heal this wound, we must first embody presence, the awareness that we are whole and complete as we are. This requires us to let go of the false belief that we need to earn love or prove our worth. We must allow ourselves to simply be, without striving for approval or validation. In this beingness, we begin to experience the masculine energy of clarity and presence, which offers a solid foundation for the more fluid feminine energy of love to emerge. When we open to love, we also begin to heal the wounds of self-worth and shame. These wounds are often rooted in the belief that we are not good enough, that we have been cast out of the garden of grace. But in the presence of love, we remember that we were never cast out. We never lost our original state of grace. Love is always available. It is the force that connects us to everything and everyone. The role of relationships in healing the wound. One of the most powerful aspects of healing the Adam and Eve wound is the healing power of relationships. Our relationships with others mirror our relationship with ourselves. When we heal our relationship to ourselves by accepting both the masculine and feminine energies within, we begin to experience more harmonious and fulfilling relationships with others. In relationships, the healing process often involves creating a space for both love and presence. This means showing up with full awareness of who we are, without the need to prove or defend ourselves. It also means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to be open to the flow of love without fear of rejection or failure. In doing so, we begin to dissolve the illusion of separation that has kept us isolated and disconnected. When we allow the energies of love and presence to merge in our relationships, we create a sacred space for healing. In this space, we are no longer bound by the fears of inadequacy, shame, or guilt. We are free to love deeply, to be fully present, and to experience the fullness of life. This is the return to the garden of grace, where love flows freely and abundantly. Embodying wholeness, living from the truth of our being. Hope you're still with me. Ultimately, healing the Adam and Eve wound is about returning to wholeness. a recognition that we have always been whole and complete. The separation we have felt is a temporary illusion, a veil that can be lifted through the practice of love and presence. To live from this truth is to embody our true nature, the union of love and presence. This is not a mental understanding, but a living, breathing experience. It is the embodiment of both the masculine and feminine within, flowing together in harmony. It is the realization that we have always been worthy of love, always been one with the divine, and always been whole. This healing is not something we seek externally, but something we realize within ourselves. It is the return to the truth of who we are, beyond the illusion of separation. When we remember this, the Adam and Eve wound begins to dissolve, and we begin to live from a place of wholeness, love, and peace. Conclusion is, the Adam and Eve wound is a wound of separation, but it is also an invitation, a call to return to the truth of our being. By embracing both the masculine and feminine energies within us, we can begin to heal this wound and step into a life of unity, love, and presence. The healing of the Adam and Eve wound is not about fixing anything. It is about remembering that we have always been whole, always been loved, and always been connected to the divine. When we remember this, we experience the fullness of life and the deep peace that comes from embodying our true nature. I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening and watching.